The morning sun rose slowly over Ajagunle, spreading light over the crowded streets. Life had already started. Hawkers shouted the prices of their goods. Demful buses honked loudly. Children played barefoot, chasing tires, and market women argued over small change. Inside this chaos lived Chike Nuosu, a boy whose eyes carried a hunger far greater than his empty stomach. Poverty was his closest friend, but inside him lived a dream of riches, power, and respect. Chike's father, Ifeanyi, was once a skilled mason, known for his strong arms and fine work. But now, bottles of cheap gin ruled his life. Most nights, he stumbled home drunk, with no money for food. His mother, Ngozi, was a woman of fire and strength. She roasted corn by the roadside, her hands black with soot, her face hardened by years of suffering. Their home was one small, leaking room in a face-me-I-face-you compound. When it rained, water dripped through the zinc roof. At night, mosquitoes filled the air. Many times, Chike went to bed hungry, listening to his mother's quiet midnight prayers. Ngozi often whispered, "God, please lift my son from this poverty. Let him not suffer like me." Chike heard these prayers, and though his belly was empty, his heart burned with ambition. At school, Chike was mocked for wearing slippers tied with wire. One afternoon, after his classmates laughed at him, he clenched his fists and whispered, "One day, I will be so rich that even the ground I walk on will shine." By the age of 12, Chike was already working. He pushed wheelbarrows in Oingbo Market. At 15, he carried cement blocks at construction sites, his back bent from weight. At 17, he shouted bus routes as a conductor, dodging insults and beatings from angry passengers. No matter how hard he worked, poverty refused to let him go. The money was too little. The hunger is too much. One night, after his father slapped his mother for cooking food without meat, Chike ran outside, crying. He raised his fists to the dark sky and swore, "I will never die poor. I will never live like my father. I will do whatever it takes to become rich, even if it costs me my life." That vow planted a dangerous seed inside him. At 19, Chike's frustration grew. He had finished secondary school with good grades, but further education was impossible. He tried small businesses, but each one failed. Then one evening, he saw his childhood friend Tunde. Tunde, who once wore torn shirts and begged for food, now wore fitted clothes, gold chains, and had a car. Chike stared in surprise. "Tunde, is this really you? How did you make it?" Tunde smiled, showing off his gold watch. "Chike, my brother, Lagos hustle cannot make you rich. Carrying loads and shouting bus routes will not give you anything. There are faster ways, but only for men who are ready." Chike's eyes narrowed. "What way?" Tunde leaned closer and whispered, "There is a shrine in my mother's village. Men go there with nothing, but they come back rich. The spirits give them wealth, but it comes with a price." Chike's heart beat fast. "What kind of price?" Tunde looked around, lowered his voice, and said, "Your first child." Chike laughed nervously, though fear crawled in his chest. "Tunde, this is a joke." Tunde shook his head. "I am living proof. Look around you, Chike. Do you want to die like your father? Do you want your mother to suffer until she dies? Or do you want to rise?" That night, Chike could not sleep. He thought of his father's drunkenness, his mother's pain, and his own hunger. By morning, he had made his decision. That evening, Tunde took Chike to his village. They walked deep into a forest until they reached a mud hut covered in red cloths and calories. Smoke rose from a fire that had no wood. An old priest with chalked skin and burning eyes sat before them. His voice was deep and frightening.
So the priest said slowly, "Another son of the city has come. What do you seek?" Chike knelt down, trembling but firm. "I want wealth. I want to bury poverty forever. I want my name to be known in the city." The priest stared into his soul, then placed a clay pot of black liquid in front of him. "The spirits do not give for free," the priest said. "Your first child belongs to them. When the time comes, you must release him. If you refuse, your wealth will destroy you." Chike froze, his hands shaking, but the memory of his mother's suffering and his classmates' laughter burned inside him. He whispered, "I accept." The priest smiled, showing brown teeth. He sprinkled white powder on Chike's forehead and chanted words that shook the trees. Then he gave him a red-wrapped charm. "Go," the priest said. "Your road has opened. But remember, the spirits do not forget." From that night, Chike's life changed. Opportunities came like miracles. A bus owner trusted him with one vehicle. Soon, he owned 4. His businesses grew. Politicians called him. Contracts found him. By his mid-20s, Chike owned mansions in Lekki, cars, and money beyond counting. People said, "This young man is blessed." Others whispered, "Na juju, he dey use." But at night, Chike's dreams were filled with the shrine. The priest's voice echoed, "Your first child belongs to the spirits. The spirits do not forget." In his 30s, Chike met Adara, a calm, graceful woman who loved him not for his money but for his heart. She brought him peace. They married in a grand wedding, and soon their house was filled with joy. They had 3 children: Obina, the firstborn, sharp and clever; Amaka, gentle and sweet; and little Sumto, playful and stubborn. To Adaora, they were blessings from God. To Chike, they were his true wealth. But whenever he looked at Obina, his first son, fear filled his heart. He would hug the boy tightly and whisper, "Nothing will ever take you from me." But deep inside, he remembered the vow. Years passed. Chike was no longer the poor boy from Ajegule. He was now a rich man with companies, cars, and powerful friends. Newspapers wrote about him. People called him a miracle man. But inside him, fear never left. The words of the priest still followed him like a shadow. "Your first child belongs to the spirits. The spirits do not forget." On Chike's 45th birthday, Andaara planned a big celebration. Governors, businessmen, and celebrities filled their Lekki mansion. Music played, glasses clinked, and people praised Chike's success. Then suddenly, everything changed. At the gate of the mansion, a black goat appeared. Its eyes glowed red like fire. It bleated, but the sound was like a crying baby. Guests froze, some screamed. Before anyone touched it, the goat disappeared into thin air.
The whole party turned silent. People began whispering. Some left in fear. Chike's hand shook as he forced a smile. "It is nothing," he said, though sweat ran down his face. That night, when everyone was gone, Chike could not sleep. And then, in his dream, he saw the old priest. The priest's voice thundered, "The time has come. The spirits do not forget." Chike woke up gasping for breath. He knew the debt had come due. The next morning, Obina, his first son, woke up with a high fever. Strange marks appeared on his body. At night, the marks glowed faintly like fire. Adiora cried, "Chike, what is happening to our son? This is not ordinary." They rushed him to the best hospitals. Doctors ran tests but found nothing. "Medically, there is nothing wrong with him," one doctor said. "This is beyond science." Pastors came to pray. They fasted, they anointed him with oil, but still Obina grew weaker. Sometimes, in half-sleep, he whispered, "They are calling me." And Yora held him tightly, weeping. "Who is calling you, my son?" But Chike already knew the answer. As Obina's sickness grew worse, Chike's business empire began to collapse. Contracts were canceled, accounts were blocked, politicians stopped answering his calls, friends abandoned him. It was as if a dark cloud followed him everywhere. One night, Adeora overheard him muttering in his sleep about the shrine and the vow. She shook him awake. "Chike, what are you hiding from me?" Chike broke down, falling to his knees. With tears in his eyes, he confessed everything. The vow, the shrine, the wealth, and the debt. Adeora screamed in horror. "You sold your son before he was even born?" Chike tried to touch her, but she pulled away. "You betrayed me, Chike. You betrayed your family." From that day, Adeora no longer looked at him the same way. She began to fast and pray every day, declaring, "No covenant is stronger than God. My son will not die." Her voice filled the house with prayer, but at the same time, Chike was consumed with guilt and fear. One night, a heavy storm hit. The wind roared, thunder shook the ground, and rain poured like never before. Suddenly, Obina screamed from his room. Adeora and Chike rushed in, only to see him being pulled by invisible hands, his body lifted from the bed, thrashing in the air. Adeora grabbed his leg, shouting, "Leave my son! In Jesus' name, leave him!" But the force was too strong. Obina was dragged out of the house into the rain. Chike and Adeora chased after him, screaming. They followed the trail deep into a forest. There they found him lying weak, blood on his face, strange marks glowing brighter than ever. Adeora collapsed, crying over her son's body. "God, please save my child!" Chike knew the spirits had come to collect their debt.
The next day, Chike left home quietly. He did not tell Edanwara where he was going. He returned to the forest shrine. The priest was waiting, sitting by the fire that burned without smoke. Chike fell on his knees, weeping. "Please, spare my son. Take me instead. I will give my life. Just leave Obina." The priest looked at him calmly. "You made a vow. The spirits do not forget." For 3 days, Chike stayed at the shrine. He refused food and water. He wept and prayed, begging the spirits. On the 3rd night, thunder shook the forest. The fire rose high into the sky. The priest's voice thundered, "You vowed your first child, but your love is stronger than your vow. Tonight, the debts shall be paid another way." The ground trembled. Chike cried out, "Take me! Take me!" And then his body grew weak. His breath slowed. With one final whisper, he said, "Obina, live." He collapsed and never rose again. At that very moment, far away in Lagos, Obina opened his eyes. The marks on his body disappeared. The sickness left him. "Mama, I am free," he whispered weakly. Adanwara cried, tears of joy hugging him tightly. But deep down, she knew what it had cost. Hours later, news came. Chike was dead. Chike was buried quietly in Ajerule, the same soil he once swore never to return to. The once great businessman who owned mansions and companies now rested in the ground of the slum where he began. At his grave, Edaora stood with her 3 children. She wiped her tears and spoke firmly. "Remember this, my children. Wealth that comes from blood will never last.
It is better to have little with peace than riches that destroy your soul. Obinna, the firstborn, looked at her with tears in his eyes and said, I promise, Mama, I will never walk the path of my father. Moral of the story: desperation can lead to dangerous choices. Wealth without peace is a curse. Some doors of quick success open to destruction.